Welcome to the family meeting. Here we get to come together with extended family, friends, connected by blood or relationship to explore the profound importance of our families and share some heartfelt stories, uncover some of the lessons and challenges and joys of our relationship. But at the heart of our conversation is one simple but powerful truth, and that is we are all part of the same human family. And the more deeply we understand and embrace that connection, the better life will be on planet Earth because we'll treat each other different. And with that said, I have the rare privilege and opportunity to have a conversation with one of my oldest friends. Wait, not that you old, like old, but that I've known you longer than any other person on the planet, Mr. Kevin Sconiers. Kevin Sconiers, how you doing?
Man, it is such a pleasure to be here with you, brother. It really is.
Man, I've been looking forward to this conversation, man. How far did we go back? I mean, I think we was together in grade school. I don't even remember. Man.
Well, you were a part of the first musical band that I was ever in, and I guess I was about 10 years old at the time.
Really, really.
Yeah.
Wow, I remember that so vividly, man. That was my first exposure to music and developing appreciation for it being around you. So tell me, Kevin, how did you get started? Tell us a little bit. First, introduce yourself. Just tell us about yourself and what you do, because I know you're a fascinating individual. I want my family to become acquainted with what you do.
So I'm Kevin Sconiers. First, I'm a husband. I'm a father. Uh, I am a son, and I'm now a grandfather, which is really pretty amazing. I'm a
Yes.
musician, a writer, and a producer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how did you get started doing what you do? Where did it all begin?
Well, I grew up in the house of musical people. My mother played piano. My older brother played the guitar, and my older sister, she played piano, and my younger
Yeah, I
brother
remember.
played bass guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my uncle was an amazing jazz pianist. So I was always learning different things from everybody who was around me. Uh,
Mm.
as I got older, I started to have friends who played very well. I mean, it just introduced me to all kinds of ways of looking at music. Al Willis, amazing guitar player. Richard Gibbs, amazing organist, pianist, plays bass guitar. I mean, I was around these guys, and kind of spurred me to be better.
I consider you to be I don't know what you call it, a genius in this space, kind of like Prince, having the capacity to play almost any instrument, man, like without training. You just went into it. It's because when I saw you, you could jump on the thing at a drop of a hat and start getting it, right? How did you come about being so diverse in your skill set?
So again, it really comes from being inspired by other people. My uncle, who I mentioned earlier, he always said that you can do anything that you want to do. So
Mm,
he never put limits on the music. And so when I heard music, I didn't necessarily see it in the categories that we are comfortable with. It's just music, and I can kind of listen to music from anywhere and appreciate what's there. So I just love music, man. I love the idea of it. I love the notes. I love the drums. I love the chords. And you can play anything for me, and I can appreciate a part of what you're playing.
you can kind of adapt it too. You can hear something, just kind of create your own version of it, man. You are a gifted individual. I
Thank
kid
you.
you not.
Thank
Uh,
you. I
can
appreciate
you
that.
can you tell me what have been some of the greatest challenges that you faced
Yeah.
in your career in this space?
Um, Probably the most difficult thing is to be heard.
Mm,
Uh, it's easier now because there are a lot of platforms that allow you to be heard. But probably being heard is, if you go in and you Google this, this is for almost anybody. You Google it and you say, what does it cost to make a hit record? Now, if you Google this, it's gonna say $1 million.
is that right?
Because they have a hit record is going to cost $1 million, and that is obviously hiring musicians and studio time and the other thing. But in order to get played on the radio and just really to be heard is hard. But it's going to say $1 million. It's going to blow you away when you see that because it blew.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Something that I heard recently that really was astounding was I recall that during the introduction of the rap era, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of conscious musicians, and they
Mm-hmm.
captured the attention of our culture because it was speaking about real truths that that we needed to become aware of, and they were waking people up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like uh, in what was some of the rappers in the early days, like uh, ends with an attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, but as we began to be conscious of the need to do things in our community, it's as if the powers that be kind of came in and said, you know what,
Sure.
let's silence that. Don't start speaking the truth. Let's give them this other content. And they
Yeah.
started creating. So when you say it's difficult to be heard because there are gatekeepers that are controlling what the masses get. Can you speak to that for a second?
Sure. I mean, I think what you said is on it. It is um, when someone else controls the content that you put out, or they control the spaces where what you put out can be heard. They
Mm-hmm.
determine what is to be heard, and
Mm.
I think it's really easy um, to take for granted what we're listening to and how it impacts us as a community.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if, for instance, you take uh, a folk or a people who make it against the law for you to read, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, right? It's
Remember
against the
that.
law. It's against the law for you to read. So that speaks to intention.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to understand what truth is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I also have the ability to put in front of you mediums, what you see and what you listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want you to read. Well, what I put in front of you is going to express the same idea about me not allowing you to read.
Powerful, man.
You
Powerful.
understand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully I consider this word. The word is propaganda. This
Oh,
is a
absolutely.
tool that has
Absolutely.
been used for
Absolutely.
military purposes
Absolutely.
for centuries, right? They
Absolutely.
used it in World War One to try to influence the attitude of a people and to sway them in a certain direction. I
Sure.
mean, they use it on both sides. So
Sure.
the fact that that's still happening on
Sure.
a quote unquote more acceptable social level,
Sure.
man, it's diabolical.
I think that the deeper truth is um, if I were not afraid of your greatness, I would put nothing in the way of you trying.
Mm, mm.
If
That's
if
good.
if your greatness didn't frighten me, there would be no roadblocks.
Dude. Well, I want you to share with us what have been some of your greatest wins, I should say, discoveries, wins in your experience.
Well,
I'm gonna speak to one because I listened to this song that you did.
hmm,
What was it? Too many
not
tears,
too
so many
many
tears.
things. Yeah,
Oh man, that was a profound piece,
yeah.
dude. But share with us before I go into that. Share with us what have you consider to be some of your greatest wins,
So I want to
discoveries.
start with where you are. So far too many tears is it became a rap opera that I wrote. And I hooked up with a brother, John Davis, Saeed Saluhidin, and my cousin, Marquita Sconiers. And we wrote this rap. I wrote all of the music behind it, but I had these brothers to come in and they wrote the rap parts. It's given me so much more respect for people who write rap because these
Mm,
are geniuses.
mm,
And, it takes a lot of skill to write that. But we wrote a song about Chicago and the violence that's in Chicago, and far too many tears is about the mother's tears, the tears of family members who are watching our young man be killed in the streets um, by each other and unfortunately by law enforcement. And it's just a song to express just a sense of despair that a lot of us have in
mm,
watching this. Um,
mm,
I remember I was in a home one time. I was doing some work for someone. I was in someone's home, and this 3-year-old kid comes over to me, 3 or 4-year-old kid. He comes over to me and he says, "You know, we heard shooting last night."
mm.
Now, what does a 3 or 4-year-old kid know about shooting? Or the better questions is, what should a 3 or 4-year-old child? So what's happening is these kids very early in their lives, they've been impacted by something that they should absolutely know
Mm,
nothing about. So
dude.
far too many tears is really about that child, hearing those
Hmm.
and understanding what it is, and maybe even later on what the impact of it is. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live
Having grown up and spent most of my life in Chicago, I
in.
really connect and identify with that because I've
Mhm.
seen it firsthand. But the thought of when you take an art form like music and you can take that emotional stirring that you
Mhm.
feel, the
Mhm.
empathy, and put into words and kind of capsulize that like you putting your feelings in a bottle and then
Mhm.
you share it with other people and they can like, oh man, some people who are completely oblivious to that type of experience start to really think, you know what, that's serious. So
Mhm.
you expressed it in such a profound and artistic way, man. I'm gonna definitely share that information with my family when I get an opportunity because I have a lot of people in my family who are aspiring to be in the space of music in whatever form or style. There was something that you shared with me the other day, though, that I want you to touch on, and that
Okay.
was syncing.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to say something really quickly, and then we'll get to the sync licensing.
Sync
Is what
licenses is what it was.
right. But here's what I'm really clear on in terms of the music that I write and how it's arranged and those things. I'm very clear on the fact that I am a conduit.
Mm,
That instead of coming from me, what I write comes through me.
wow.
I'm very clear on that.
Mm,
Uh, that whatever greatness it may sound like, whatever goodness that comes from it, I'm very clear on the fact that the gift that I have is it comes through me rather than from me. And I like to be led in that way. My life is based on that level of spirituality. Uh,
dude, that's that the fact that you articulated it like that because
mhm,
when you express what you express and something comes through you that's impactful to the world, it
mhm,
changes the behavior of those that hear your experience your gift.
mhm.
Sometimes they may rethink how they approach or interact with
Oh, yeah.
people at large. But go ahead.
So you were
Tell me
talking
about
about
sync lights.
sync licensing. So sync licensing is having your music to be placed in movies, television, um, everything that you do. If you get into an elevator, everywhere we go, we hear music, right?
Mm,
And a lot of it is unnoticed. But the next time you see a movie, or the next time we're not just talking about videos, we're talking about even television commercials.
mm,
Right? The next time you listen to it, there's music behind it,
mm.
and somebody gets their music placed in those places, and that's what sync licensing is.
Dude, and I'm glad you said that because as you mentioned, you sometimes oblivious to it. I never really thought about the fact that that's everywhere until you
Mhm.
said that. Then I started paying attention. I'm like, you know
Mhm.
what? It's a lot of it every time you turn. It's
Sure,
there.
sure,
That's an
sure.
entire
Because
industry.
music is really effective in bringing people there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it really is. It creates a mood.
Mm,
If you hear strings playing, it makes you feel sad. If you hear a
mm.
bass player playing something and there's a kick going, it makes you want to move. And so music is really effective in creating moods for us.
So tell me this, Kevin, where you see yourself going in the future with your music? What is the vision for Kevin Sconiers, the
Yeah.
musical genius?
Yeah, thank you. But I want to continue to share. I'm writing now, writing and recording now. So I'd love to put a project out probably in the next 6 months. Is my
Mm,
um, I want to do more sync licensing
okay.
kinds of project because I've been watching a few brothers who are really doing it well. And what I love about these guys is that they are sharing the information on how it's done.
Mm,
Unfortunately, a lot of times we don't do that well.
hmm.
But these brothers are teaching what they're doing, and they're clapping for people who are jumping in the
Really?
ring, right.
They
And so
celebrate each other's success.
yeah,
That's
celebrating
that's
each other,
good,
man. Come
man.
on. Yeah, we
That
have
is
to do
good.
that. Yeah,
Mm.
we have to do that. So that's something else I'm looking forward to doing.
Now, we used to live across the street from each other. So I know your family. I've seen your sister play. I've seen some of your people play. Tell us a little bit about your family, man, in terms of how do you guys support each other, encourage one another, help each other? Do you? What do you do as a family to create greater unity, bond, and express love for one another?
Well, I would say that we are still evolving in that space. However, I have some younger cousins, Latina and Coco, Alicia,
Mm,
and they keep us going. They make sure that we have events where we go bowling, or
really?
we had an event where everybody went to a place, and we played golf. They are really kind of keeping us all together. And this is the youngest generation. This is
Really?
not the youngest, but this is
Younger than you.
yeah, this is that 40-year-old group who are
Okay.
keeping us going, man. And I am so proud of them, man. So
Mm,
very proud of them. Yeah.
interesting. Now, my family, right?
Yes. Hmm.
If you could share something with my family that you believe would be impactful or beneficial to them, what would you share?
Okay. So the first thing, man, is just keep loving each other, right? And I think it's important that we recognize our families as people who have hurts and disappointments and triumphs. And like a lot of times we look at other people that way, but we don't give our family the benefit of being those people because we know so much about them. And we don't always allow for them to go through the things that human beings go through. So just keep loving each other. I think the other thing is to recognize the connection, is to know that what I do really does affect the people who love me. I'll
Mm,
give you an example. When I was a child, my mother would take us to the store with her, me and my siblings, and before we go into the store, she would give us this speech, and it went something like this: Now, don't you embarrass me in here, right?
I know the speech well. I know that speech.
But what she was saying is that you are connected to me, and the way that you behave is a reflection of who I am or what I have taught you. And what I would say to your family is that you are all a reflection of each other, from the youngest to grandmother who just left here, right? Is that you are all a reflection of each other, and we have to behave in a way where we're honoring who we are. I just recently found an article on a fellow. His name was Luke Sconiers. Now,
Mm,
Luke Sconiers was the grandfather of my grandfather. He was born in 1854,
mm,
right? And so my younger brother Keith is like the family genealogist, and he finds all of this great information on family. And when you look at that, my grandfather's grandfather, and he was born into slavery.
mm,
And what I thought about is that um, what I represent is who he was, not necessarily as a slave, but the miracle of my still being here in this country under the circumstances that he had to live through.
mm,
That is really powerful. Now, we live in a world right now, especially in this country, where people are trying to tell us to discount history.
mm.
If you discount history, you will never fully understand the miracle that you are and being in this place at this time, because we're not really supposed to be here.
Wow, that's profound, man. Yeah, I get it. You had mentioned that there is a town
Yeah.
named after you. Tell us about that, man. How did you get a town named after you?
So now that I don't know, not for sure, but there is a place. It's in Alabama, and there's an area. It's called Sconiersville. There is a post office and a church, and people live there. And it's actually a place where every 2 years, my family gather. That part of my family gather to be with each other. And you can look it up. I mean, it's on the map, Sconiersville, Alabama. And My understanding, what I was told, is that on one side of the railroad tracks you have the black Scaniers, and then on the other side of the railroad tracks you have the white folks whose last name is also Scaniers. And I always found that to be interesting because that name didn't come over with us from Africa.
Right. 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 I get that. I get that. And it's still some kind of divisiveness, because is it the colonization still there where there's black on one side and white on the other side?
I would say that's probably generally a truth, although for that area, it's a really small rural area.
Mm,
And I would say that a lot of the younger folks are no longer there, possibly. I don't want to overstate the
mhm.
differences in terms of what's on one side and the other without really knowing for sure. But I'm going to say that that's very possibly the truth. Yeah.
Mm. I'm going to tell you part of why I began this process of chronicling these conversations, because people who I know are important in my life that had a tremendous impact upon me, and seeing the things that they have done as they have evolved and grown, I liken it onto what I saw in Superman movie, right? Because Superman, when he got here, he was by himself. Family went here. They gave him these little crystals. They said, if you want to understand what's going on, what you need to be doing, look at these crystals. And there was a conversation from his father, from his mother saying, you know, Hillel, this is what you have to deal with. So you have to navigate this space. So I really appreciate you sharing with us. But can you tell us, what do you consider to be one of the most important things that you would share with the generations to come?
Um, that's okay to be who you are. Like the most important thing that you can do is learn to love yourself. Um,
Mm.
you know, we seem to always be squeezed into a space of needing to be recognized, be acknowledged by other people. I believe that once you love yourself deeply enough, the people who should be around you will be. And I think, if you don't love yourself enough, the people who you tend to be around may not provide for you the healthiest environment for being the best.
Mm, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That is fascinating.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So tell us, Kevin, how can we get access to your work? I'm going to share some information with my family as relates to what you do, but where will we go to access your content, hear your music, or get in touch with you if we need to?
So my website is Sconsongs, SCON, SONGS, sconsonsmusic.com. My music is under the name Sconsongs, and it can be found on every platform, Spotify, Amazon, um, YouTube. You can find it everywhere.
Really?
Yes.
Dude, I want you to know how grateful I am for you taking this time out to share with us. And it's like every time I talk to you, you pull back layers that I never knew was there. It's like, oh, if you consider this, it's just mind boggling, but eye opening. So I'm eternally grateful with you, my brother. You are part of my eternal family. And I want to give you this assignment. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
talked to Tony Collins, who's also a talented musician.
Oh, yeah.
And I recognize the value of collaborative energy because there's a synergetic, what I call hidden equity among us. That when we come together to get something done, we benefit not just ourselves, but the other people who we're working with. It's kind of like you got to pick up a table and you picking it up by yourself. One man may struggle with it where two men can move it with ease. So since you guys are in the same area, the assignment is to make sure you guys become accountability
Yeah.
collaborate, support, and inform each other so that both of y'all can win. Celebrate your wins together, like
Yes.
you were mentioning those other people were doing in the sinking arena.
Absolutely. And listen, let me tell you, man, it's a great pleasure to be here with you. Um, after all of these years, man, we're still in contact, and that's pretty amazing in itself.
It
So
is. It is
I
indeed.
have I have a deep appreciation and deep love for you, my brother. I really do, man.
Mm. I do have same for you, my friend. With that said, we're gonna sign off for
Yes.
today's family meet with Kevin Sconiers.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Kevin.
All right, brother.